It's mid-spring and the bass out here on the California Delta are in full spawn. This is the absolute best time to get out and catch yourself a Delta giant. We're going to cover everything you need to know to go out and do that in just a minute, but before we do, we're going to take a look at some pictures from a few of the successful anglers and their catches that they had in the past week. So let's take a look at these pics and we'll get right into the report. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. This is the weekly fishing report for the week of April 17th. And like I said, it has been a good one. Before we get into the report, I want to remind everybody that the Crappie Closets Crappie Tournament is coming up at Lake Berryessa this weekend. That's going to be April 19th. If you need any information on that, go to the Crappie Closets Bait Facebook. Marlon's got all the information you'll need. You can call Marlon, get that information, get up there and fish yourself a crappie tournament. Let's get into the report. And I want to start off with Clear Lake because there has been some amazing fishing up there. Last week, they had the Clear Lake One Bass Tournament. This is a Pro-Am tournament, 176 boats. To win that tournament, it is a 3-day tournament, so this is 15 fish. It took 102 pounds. Second place was 101 pounds. First and second place, I don't know that's ever been done before. 2 3-day bags over 100 pounds. I want to congratulate John Pearl. He was the winner. Number 2 was Nathan Phillips. I'm going to get into this a little bit because I think it's important that once you hear those weights, you have to put it in perspective if you're going to go up there. I also want to give a big shout out to Joey Price from Priceless Fishing. Pro side, he was number 7, local guy, Delta guide. He had 85 pounds and some change. Also our buddy Christian Ostrander. He took he was number 15th out there. I talked to Christian. Christian had almost 80 pounds, 79 something. He was disappointed because he didn't win the tournament. Well, that's Christian. I asked him, why didn't you win the tournament? He had some boat problems, really didn't get any chance to pre-fish the tournament. So without any pre-fishing at all, Christian went up there and took 15th out of 176. He wasn't happy with that. I still congratulated him. Let me go over one thing. The top 10 places had some incredible weights. Now remember, when we talk about the top 10, it's 3 days. We're talking about 15 bags over 30 pounds, 13 bags over 25. And out of the top 10, the smallest weight in the 3 days, the smallest daily weight was 22.7 pounds. That is incredible. Here's the deal. Both John Pearl, most of you guys know John, he is a local guy, lives on the lake. He is a guide on Clear Lake. Second place, Nathan Phillips, another local guy. He lives at Cobb Mountain, but that's basically Clear Lake, also guides on the lake. Don't think you're going to go up there and come from out of the area with little or no knowledge about how to fish this lake and get over 100 pounds in 3 days. It's just not going to happen. Local knowledge runs deep up there, and if you don't have it, the only way you're going to get it is to get up there and really, put some time in on the lake. I have a little more coming for Clear Lake, and I want to talk about the report that I got from Clear Lake Outdoors, and I got this from Nino Spella up there. Nino gave me a great report, and he says, the fishing is good, but it's tough up there. The North Lake is 5 to 6 degrees warmer than the South Lake. So the North Lake is probably pre-spawn and spawn, jerk baits, LVs, strolling, hover strolling, are catching fish, paddle tails, weightless Cincos. Everything is in shad color. It's the shad are the prevalent bait up there. If you go to the South Shore, it's still or the south part of the lake, it's still in pre-spawn. The water's still cooler up there. They're getting them on underspins, glide baits, A-rigs, and they're still doing hover strolling. The South Lake is running still around 55 to 56 degrees temperature, and again, the northern part of the lake is 5 to 7 degrees warmer. So if you want to get those fish in spawn or pre-spawn, head up north. If not, you can go down to the south end of the lake and get into to those fish that are a little farther behind in the spawn. So that is the information for Clear Lake, and with that, we are going to get right into the Delta report. I want to tell you that I've got a special guest. Nathan, why don't you come up here? Nathan's going to talk about stripers, because the stripers are going strong out here. We have about 65 degree water temps. Most of the visibility out here is, I'm going to say, between 3, 5, 6, and 7 feet of visibility. And everything is looking good. We have had some weather fronts move in that have brought some breeze out here, which has only helped the fishing. So Nathan, you've been out 3 or 4 times. You have been with your buddy Fish King. You and Eddie have been out here. And I want to say that, you know, we're not going to talk about going out to the Sacramento River, Liberty, or Sherman.
That's where I wanted to go.
Yeah, he wanted to go up there, but Eddie didn't have the time to get up there.
He thought the fish were out here, and he was right.
Yeah. So we're talking about fishing between Lads and Prisoner's Point. You guys are concentrating on the main channel. You're looking at flats, and you're looking at some of the sloughs that are emptying into the main channel, looking for current.
Yeah, we were looking for current. We were fishing the first 2 hours of the outgoing tide. That's where we ran into our action. We got action in all conditions, but it really, really got hot on the day we were out when it was really windy, and it was blowing about 20 miles an hour. We were catching the fish on big glide baits. 8 and 9 inch glides were key. When the wind was going, we were fishing them faster. When the conditions were a little calmer, we were fishing them slower. We had a lot of big fish come and swirl at the boat. We had a couple of fish that we lost. Eddie caught one, or he lost one that was at least 20 pounds. He was really bummed out about that, but about 30 minutes later, he hooked into one and landed it that was well over 20 pounds. It was a monster fish. I caught one that was 14.
We'll get some of these pictures up there too, and I also need to interrupt you, because you're talking about this one day that you had of great fishing. That was Tuesday. There was a pressure front that moved in, and that really turned the bite on for anybody that was on the Delta. But I also want to just put in there, you caught fish Monday. We went out today, Wednesday. The fish are still there. They're not on this rampant bite that you guys got, but the fish are still there and they're still chomping. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the day before, I think we had 3 or 4 fish over 10 pounds, and then the next day, which was yesterday, we landed 5 or 6 fish. Like I said, we had 2 on that were over 20 pounds. Landed one of those. I caught one that was 14 pounds, and I think 3 or 4 others that were in the 10-pound class. We stuck with the big glides all day long.
Show them what you were using.
S-Waver 200 and the middle-sized Sneaky Pete. We were catching them on pretty much every color we threw. The light trout is always a good one. The shad patterns were working. Bone was working. In the morning, we got a little bit of action on top water, but the glide baits were really the key. We didn't even pick up jerk baits or paddle tails. I'm sure we would have got more numbers on those, but we were getting enough action on those glide baits. And I would say with the glide baits, you want to just make sure you keep them moving. The fish absolutely will not hit them if the bait comes to a pause. So just make sure the bait's moving. Faster is usually better. And keep a close eye on the bait, because we saw a lot of activity around and behind the bait, and fish it all the way to the boat. And just stick with it, man. There's some big fish in the system.
And I want to say the reason that Nathan doesn't have the the weights on those two big fish, the really big fish they caught, because they didn't know they had the scale on the boat till later in the day. So Nathan caught his 14-pounder after they found the scale, and they were able to weigh that one. And boy, when you see these pictures, you're going to see some really nice fat fish.
Another thing, we found some areas where we were marking a lot of fish and a lot of bait, and that's not where we caught the big fish. There was nothing indicating that there was much going on. The only action we saw was around our lures. So don't be discouraged if you don't see any birds and you're not seeing fish moving around.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there's not some giants in there. You got to throw the big glides and see if they come out and take a peek.
It looked pretty desolate out there this morning, and we fished about an hour just before we came out and did the report, and we landed 2 fish, had a couple swirls, and had some fish flashing. So don't be afraid to, if there's no birds around, so on and so forth, don't be afraid to go out there and fish those stripers. There are a lot of sea lions. We saw them chomping.
Once they come around, it's time to move.
Yeah, once they come around, it is time to move. So with that, let's talk about the largemouth bass, and I do have another cameo appearance and a special guest from a special guest. We're going to have Rob Cloutier on. I'm going to let Rob tell you about what he thinks you guys should be doing next week. But I want to get into a couple of tournaments and just go over the weights so you can kind of see what's going on out here. The Delta Bass Club had their tournament Saturday. That was 412 out at Holland Track. They had 21 boats. Big shout out to my buddy Glenn Rhodes for winning that tournament with 18.9 pounds. Great weight, and I noticed their weights were all pretty consistently higher than what they've been in the last several weeks. Chris, who gave me the report, said they were taking them on crankbaits, Cincos, chatterbaits, and most guys are starting to get limits, and they are not all 18, 19 pound limits, but they're really starting to perk up. We also had the BBT, the Best Bass Tournament, their Golden Mussel Series last week, 412. They had 32 boats. Once again, Lorenzo and Luca Rossetti had 23.2 to win. Lorenzo's, they had a 9.2 pound kicker on there. They played 8 places, and it took 20 pounds to cash a check. Midfield was right at 15 pounds. That is a real big increase from what has happened in the last, I'll say, even 2 weeks ago. Really nice bags coming out of there. I was out at the Bass Hole Tournament, which happened to be Sunday. The AM side, it actually took, they had 2 bags over 20 pounds. The pro side, or the high rollers, I think a 19-pound bag won. Again, all of these guys that are fishing the Bass Hole know the Bass Hole Tournament, know the Delta. They're all familiar with it. So anybody in that circuit could break 20 pounds on any day. But the bottom line is everything is going great guns. That fish that I had in the intro was a 9-pound fish. I wasn't bed fishing, but I'm sure that fish was hanging around a bed. My situation is to just put time in the water, on the water, work hard, try to fish through tides. If I'm fishing out here and I have two baits to use, it's going to be a weightless Cinco when the wind's not blowing, a chatterbait when it's blowing, and after that you take your choice. So with that, let's get into the interview that I did with Rob, and Rob will tell you what he thinks is going to happen on the Delta. So take it away, Rob. What is your suggestion for guys planning on going out this next week? What should they be looking for? What should they have tied on?
So we are just getting finished with that first full moon of this month right here. A lot of these fish are already starting to spawn. Bigger waves going to start moving up here on this new moon, in my opinion. So you'll have post-spawn, pre-spawn fish, all the stages going on. We're going to be looking for flats. We're going to be looking for recover areas, current, rocks, anywhere these fish can hide out. They're going to be snatching up crawdads. The bluegills start moving up. So we're going to be flipping. We're going to be punching. We're going to be crankbaiting. We're going to be LVs, lipless, and chatterbait. Should be putting them in the boat.
Do you have some of those baits in the shop?
Always do.
All right. Okay, here's another thing, Rob. Tell me what you think about this. I have been talking to a lot of people. I'm getting a lot of reports People are hooking big fish and they're just not sticking, myself included. What the heck's going on? What's it going to take for these big fish to really start swallowing the baits and for us to start landing a few of these bigger fish?
You know, here's the thing. A lot of these guys aren't prepared for these big fish to bite. I get a lot of people coming to the shop and they're rocking that 6, 8, 10, 12 pound test. You are just dancing with the devil right there, in my opinion. If you aren't flipping with braid, 65-pound braid, if you're not throwing 65 on your top water, if you're not throwing 20-pound fluorocarbon on your chatterbaits and crankbaits, you're going to miss these opportunities. These big fish are going to school you. They are hungry, they are strong, and they are ready to fight. You better have the gear and the rods to tackle these fish, or you're just going to be heartbroken.
So go out and expect it.
Yep. Be ready. Be ready to pull a 10-pounder out at any given minute. You're going to get a lot of those 1s and 2s and that, and then eventually that 10-pounder is going to grab it, and you're going to fight her for 2 seconds. She's going to pop off because you weren't ready yet. So be ready. Big rods, big line. It's big fish time.
Okay, is there a preference, morning or afternoon, or is it all tide related?
You know, I've found recently that the afternoon bite tend to be better for me. I'm getting a lot of fish on frogs in that afternoon bite as well as that flipping bite. It is a more higher tide for me in that evening when I'm going out. I fished the morning yesterday. The morning was a little bit slow for us. It was a little bit colder, but again, here we are, 84 degrees today, 85 degrees out here. Water temps are really heating up and these fish are just getting active, pulling up on these flats. So I think they'll start feeding in the morning if we stay warm, but that evening bite tends to be better for me as far as top water and all my other tactics are going.
All right, you guys heard it from the man. Head in to the bass hole. Rob will get you set up with baits if you're not sure what to use. And Rob, keep me informed on what's going on this week.
Will do.
Thanks.
Yep.
I want to thank everybody for watching this week. I hope you're armed now with information to come out here and catch some fish, whether you're looking for stripers or whether you're looking for largemouth bass. You've got a good chance to catch some fish. Nathan, thanks for sharing that. And I want to also thank the Fish King, Eddie, for pulling you out and getting you into some fish and getting us into some fish. That was a lot of fun catching those stripers. And man, it's almost time for me to say it's, might be able to call in sick a day or two and come out here and do a little fishing, especially if you can get out here midweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the river. Good luck.